Well, good afternoon, Tanieka. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you for
Um, Not a problem. So, throughout the month of February, of course, we've been connecting with different business owners, specifically business owners of color, just to kind of get some insight about what you're doing, what challenges you're facing in the community, and just to be able to provide some overall advice. So, of course, I know who you are and what you do, but for the people, if you would please share a little bit about yourself and your firm and the type of people you work with.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Soraya, for having me on your show or for speaking with you. This is just an amazing opportunity to share with other people what it is that I do. My name is Tanieka Thompson-Mungo. I am the owner of the Thompson-Mungo Firm, where we help families and individuals plan for and protect their legacies. So we assist families with estate planning and also with the probate process because it can be a challenging experience for some. Our clients they really range from individuals that are younger and having to deal with probating an estate of a parent or a grandparent, or even older individuals that are planning for themselves and even for their loved ones, and even older individuals that are trying to get affairs in place for their family members. So it really is across the board as far as my clients are concerned.
Okay, awesome. And where are you located? Where's the Thompson-Mungo firm?
We are located in McDonough, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. So we're in south of Atlanta. I just ordinarily tell people like, yeah, we're in Atlanta because it's close enough.
Close enough.
Yeah, it's
I
close
totally understand.
enough.
So, of course, Tanieka, we kind of do similar work in that we work with clients and help them protect their choices and their legacies and so on. So, I want to kind of jump right into our community. And I know that you can relate to this, that our people just simply don't plan. Um, Sadly, not enough of us choose to go down this road, either because we think that we don't have enough assets and the term estate planning just sounds so sophisticated that we don't think we have enough money, um, or that we just think the process itself is too expensive. Whatever the case may be, lots of people have different reasons. But tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you've run into and what you've done to kind of overcome some of that mindset, for lack of a better word. Whether or not you've been successful, maybe you can share some tips that may be helpful to both me and to the people who are going to be watching this. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
Absolutely. So, what I have encountered as a challenge in my practice and with the individuals that I interact with or engage with is a lack of knowledge. So, the lack of knowledge, it really does hinder a lot of people from actually doing the best that they can to protect themselves, to protect their assets. And it just literally results in families being in turmoil at the passing of maybe the core person to that family. So if you don't put your affairs in order, it just makes it so much more challenging. And then it can just be a nightmare, and essentially the start of the deterioration of a family, because probate is that kind of a process. It brings out the ugly in some family members. I hate to say it, but it is the truth. So I think for me at this point, it is really and truly, I am on a mission for one, to find other practitioners that look like me and even others to start picking up an interest in estate planning and probate because representation matters.
Yes.
And so I love mentoring other attorneys in this practice area just to kind of help them get into it, because I didn't really have that when I first started. And I just had to, get out here and really dig in on my own. And I don't want future practitioners that I may engage with or, encounter to have that same experience, because it doesn't have to be that way. So I really and truly think it's having more practitioners out here to touch people and share the knowledge that they have about estate planning and the importance of it. So in my practice, we have quite a bit of we have quite a few workshops that we hold virtually. In the age of COVID, everything's virtual. So we have workshops frequently, and I actually do quite a bit of speaking engagements on a regular basis, even if it is to, it could be to sophisticated individuals such as financial advisors or individuals in a more savvy industry. Otherwise, it could be just, an everyday person, because even the everyday person has an estate and it needs to be managed properly and distributed properly. But you got to do that by having something in writing. So we got to start there.
I totally agree. And when you say even the average person has an estate, a lot of times I'm having to explain to people your estate does not equal the amount of money that you have in the bank or whether or not you have a house. If you have children, if you have any type of choices that you care about, be they medical or how someone will manage your finances, you definitely need to have some type of estate plan. And we do quite a bit of education ourselves, not as much as we did pre-COVID. But I personally have run into a lot of, I don't want to say conflict, but I can't really find a great word for it. So when you talk to people about their estate and they're basically saying to you, I really don't care, or I don't really have an estate, how do you explain to them? What do you say to them to kind of get that light bulb moment to happen?
Oh, you hit them where it hurts with emotion. Because I mean, if I can explain to you a similar situation with another client, or even to give a fact pattern or some sort of scenario to explain to you, this is how this is going to play out. I can already see the writing on the wall, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Do you really want that to happen? So, I mean, that is my direction in really pointing things out to people and the importance of having your estate planning done and having it done properly. Because even sometimes, we try to think that we can do it ourselves and do all these DIY numbers and they just create more work.
Yeah.
You can even accidentally disinherit people. I mean, some people are doing things out here and don't really know the consequences of these selections that they're making. So it's so important to really and truly consult with someone that knows what they're doing and to make sure that it happens the way that you plan. But I definitely like to go the route of explaining the consequences of doing nothing and what could potentially happen, because it's not pretty. It usually isn't.
It usually is not. And one of the things that I share with my clients a lot of times is that you never really know what people's intentions are until money is involved.
Oh,
A lot of times, it's not even a whole lot of money. It might be peanuts. And then I find myself having this conversation where I'm telling people, hey, we are having a fight based on principle because something wasn't done correctly to begin with. And now that we're having this fight based on principle, the only winner in this situation is probably going to be me.
mhm.
You're going to go back and forth in court and you will end up with nothing. And that concept a lot of times is still lost on people.
Mhm.
So we've talked a little bit, or I've talked a little bit about some of the other people that I've talked to this past month about heir property, and specifically what I refer to as property that's owned by everybody and their mama. So
Mhm.
talk to me a little bit about some of your experiences in this realm and what your thought is on how we lose, specifically our community, lose our legacies and our wealth just by not doing anything, or just by thinking that things will just kind of resolve themselves.
Okay. So in this particular realm of heir property, I've come across quite a few of these recently, and I will admit it's not my area of specialization because it is so very fact driven and very, very much so intense in terms of having so many parties that are involved. And it's so beyond me that people will allow their properties that they have. They can have hundreds of acres and just do nothing. And now you have an estate that has maybe 1,000 beneficiaries and no one knows where everyone is. So it does create substantial challenges to be able to do the right thing and to actually settle someone's estate. So, I mean, I think for this, it's really more about education and putting things in place to ensure that it doesn't fall into that kind of category, because then you're now having courts forcing people to do things with property that it should have remained in the family, but it's so either expensive to maintain or it's just very challenging to determine what to do with it because not everyone's on the same page. So
Right.
it's a very, very challenging area of law to get all those parties on the same page. But it's really sad. I think just having the proper planning in place could definitely avoid all of that. But because a lot of our, I hate to use the word ancestors, but a lot of the older folks, they go by these wives' tales. I like to think of them as, well, when I pass, it passes down to such and such and such and such, when in fact, typically it's not that way. It doesn't automatically pass. And I think, the knowledge that people can gain from meeting with someone to understand what actually happens to property when the titled owner passes away, it is so beneficial to at least get that kind of understanding to know, okay, you know what, maybe we shouldn't go this route. Maybe we should place it in a trust and make sure that there are the proper resources in the trust to be able to manage the expenses related to this property. So, I mean, there's so many other things that can be done, and just doing nothing is just being willfully unprepared and setting up your family for failure.
Absolutely. And of course, most people just don't understand that because they believe that their family members will just kind of do the right thing, right?
Mm, but that doesn't always happen, unfortunately.
Not at all. So tell me a little bit about long-term care planning. I know that that's not necessarily your area,
Mhm.
but how have you seen some of your elderly clients or even some of your younger clients um, fall into certain traps because they either failed to do something timely or didn't do anything at all?
Okay. I mean, and this can happen in so many different ways where either your older family member, it could be a parent or grandparent, didn't have certain documents in place to either nominate someone to care for them, for one, because that's one thing that's very important, identifying someone to care for you, someone to manage your finances, and if needed, dependent on your circumstances, having the particular documents in place, i.e. a trust, to protect your assets so that they are not, I don't want to use the word confiscated, but to some extent collected by the government as reimbursement for expenses that are covered for your health care. That is something that people always talk about, and they have those whispers. The government's going to take your house. Well, if you do the proper planning and actually meet with someone well in advance and at least understand what the consequences could be of not doing anything, you could have put something in place to protect it and ensure that the property would not be used as collateral for reimbursement for the government for what they've paid for you as it relates to your care. So, I mean, I really and truly encourage a lot of my clients to look at the bigger picture, because it may be a large cost to you now, but what is the greater loss in long term? So it's really definitely a good way to think about it that way. What do you do as it relates to your clients? Or I'm going to turn the tables back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I really like to talk to them about how much really do they actually, what their overall goal is. I have some people who come to me and they're like, you know what? I don't really care. When I die, I die. I don't care what happens to anything. I just want to make sure that I'm good right now. Who cares? My children, they should be taking care of themselves. I don't really care. And to those people, I'm just like, well, if that's your position and you don't really feel like planning with love in your heart for what your loved ones may have to deal with down the road, then that's cool. But what I try to explain to them is, would you rather have an option? Would you rather sit down and plan how you want to, what type of life you want to lead down the road? Would you rather have an option where you have a nest egg on the side because you've planned early enough, and now the people that you trust have access to some funds where they could supplement your life and they could, bridge the gap from what the government could possibly provide for you and what you might actually want your life to look like as you age? Or would you rather be in a position where something crazy comes up and it's like, yeah, you make too little money to actually afford this, but you have a little bit too much assets to actually qualify for anything. So now you need to liquidate everything you have so that you can pay for care, and then you leave nothing behind. And then your kids are scrambling or doing a GoFundMe or whatever the case may be so that they could pay for your funeral. Would you rather actually plan for what you want to see happen? And then I also ask them, I'm like, what's your greatest fear? And what exactly would you want to avoid? I think a lot of times people don't really think about it from that perspective. They're just thinking about, okay, this is how much money I have. I just want, a simple document. And they think that we're like low-key paper pushers. And it's like, no, this is so much more than that. This is about really talking about what your future plans are, what your goals are, who you want to take care of you when you are no longer able to take care of yourself, and what type of resources do you want to be able to have in place. It's about creating options for yourself. And then when people are like, well, wow, this is probably an expensive endeavor, or this is something that I didn't expect to pay. And I'm just like, well, if you could spend this much money now so that you could save $500,000 or protect $500,000, does it make sense to spend a few $1,000s now so that you can have something on the side for your children or for the people you trust to be able to better take care of you? To some, it makes sense, but to others, they're just like, whatever happens, happens. So it's one of those situations, especially in our communities, for whatever reason. I hate to really say it that. I really, really hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. The people who don't look like us, unfortunately, tend to care more about leaving a legacy for their children. And I saw this thing, I want to say it was on YouTube or wherever it was, where someone mentioned, they're like, imagine going around the Monopoly board, and every time you go past go, everybody else gets their $200, but you don't. Is that going to put you in a better position to be able to buy property, to build your portfolio, to do X, Y, and Z? It won't. Those other people who have a little bit of a boost will be able to accomplish more than you will. So I also try to educate my clients and tell them, hey, you may not really care, but do you really want your loved ones to be in a better position to have a better life, or to be in a better position to compete in general? To the extent that they care about that, they try to put a decent plan in place. But honestly, some people just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't really care, and you can't really convince them otherwise. So,
And it's unfortunate. It really is, because you can't start a legacy by just being selfish, and I hate to use that term.
but that's precisely what it is. I mean, when you truly love, the way you show love to people is by taking steps that protects them. And a lot of times protecting them comes or starts with protecting your own assets, protecting yourself, protecting your wishes, and making sure that you have a little bit more control over what's going to happen down the road. And people don't often look at it that way. I
love
really
that
think
analogy, though. Your Monopoly analogy is spot on.
when I heard it, I was just like, that actually makes perfect sense. And I wish I could take credit for it, but it was beautifully said. And I'm just like, I can't imagine not wanting a better life for my children. I can't imagine not making the sacrifices that I need to make so that they too can go to college and pursue a career or pursue trade school or whatever it is they might want to do in the future. But if they don't have the option and they have to start from scratch, if every generation that comes after us has to start from scratch every single time,
there's no way we'll make it
there's no
anywhere.
path forward.
No, yeah. It's just a perpetual cycle, unfortunately.
Well, it is. It is. So it's up to us
Yes.
to try to, educate our people, but it's hard. It's
Well,
really, really hard.
it is. And when you just said that a while ago, it sparked a question for me that I have for you. How do you even deal with clients that are just so against using certain tools to, I guess, create wealth for the future generations with like insurance?
That can be challenging sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, and really what I try to explain to them is, again, you are using the least amount of money possible so that you could provide a nest egg for future generations.
Mhm.
It's only going to help. It is going to be your legacy. And I also tell people talk all the time about, oh, my legacy is my children, or my legacy is this, or my legacy is that. But how I like to define legacy is that your legacy is really the experiences
Mhm.
that you allow other people to have. It's what you leave in the world. So if you leave this world and you leave your children or your loved ones with a whole bunch of chaos, that's your legacy.
Right.
But
That's
if
such a
you
great way to look at it.
but if you choose to actually do something and leave them with the boost so that maybe they can pay for your funeral and put a down payment on a house, or go to college, or
Start
actually pay your debts instead of using their money but using what you've left behind,
Mhm.
that's your legacy. Do you want to leave a legacy of peace and a legacy that's going to continue to grow down the road, or do you want to just leave this person didn't really give a because they just lived their lives and then went on, and when they were dead, they were dead. I think a lot of us unfortunately take that road, and I don't know why.
I don't know either. Well, I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of talk of the benefit of having those kinds of tools and even how beneficial that can be even during life. Because I mean, people just think of when you mention an insurance policy, oh, well, once I die, it pays out. No, there are other policies that can also pay out while you're alive and they can accrue a balance. So it can still be beneficial to have things like that in place while you're living to provide a source of income in a time of need. You never know what can happen in the future. So it could just be a nest egg, and I mean, it's so beneficial to have those things and have access to it. But if we don't know and we continue to stay in this bubble of, well, this is what my world is, instead of stepping out and learning a little bit more about what is available out there as far as tools and different things that other people use to create generational wealth. And I mean, having it going for generations and generations, it's such a very life-changing thing to do. And it can be so nominal in the grand scheme of things.
It can. And another thing too that I encounter sometimes is that people will be like, well, I had to work hard for everything I have. Nobody left me anything, blah, 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 blah. So, my children will have to make their own way just like I did. And it's like, so where's the growth here?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a tough one. That's a
It,
really, really tough one. And then I also encounter those people who are just like, well, am I technically defrauding the government because I'm trying to hide assets, or I'm trying to move things so that I can qualify for Medicaid, or whatever the case may be. And then to those people, I say, well, when you file your taxes every year, do you claim all your deductions,
mm,
your child care credit,
mhm.
all those things that actually bring down your tax liability? Because it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
You're just basically switching things from one category to another so that you have options.
Mhm.
So it definitely is about education, but you know just as well as I do, our people are some of the most difficult to try to educate, especially in this realm.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's something I'd like to overcome, but I don't know how
Well,
realistic it is in my lifetime.
well, I mean, and I think too, because you know what, I've even faced some challenges with some older individuals that are hesitant even to work with attorneys based on their past experiences with attorneys and them either themselves or their family members being taken advantage of. So
Mhm.
it's hard to still place trust even if it's someone that looks like you based on past experiences. So it's a lot to overcome. And I feel like that's just some trauma that some of the people in this world that look like us just are just so hard to convince that not everyone in this practice or even not everyone is out here to get you. Some people are genuinely out here to help you and want the best for you. And that's why we continue to move forward and do what we do and educate people as much as we try to and try to put the word out of the importance of having this kind of planning in place. So it's just so much that we as practitioners will have to overcome. But I think it's as long as we continue to work forward and spread the word and bring other practitioners into this area, this practice area, because even estate planning and probate, it's just so few attorneys of color in this practice area. And that's the part that kind of hurts my heart. Like I'll go to court so many times and I'm the only person of color in there. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it would still be nice to see other practitioners that are just out here just as passionate as we are about what it is that we do and want the best for their clients and out here doing it because that kind of representation matters as well. So we just have to keep pushing forward and encouraging people in law, the few of us that there are, because the numbers are so dismal. Is it like 13% of attorneys in the US are people of color? It's a really low percentage.
It's a really, and even fewer of us in this space, in
Yeah.
estate planning space. So that's yeah. But one day at a time.
Right. I feel that sigh in my core though.
One day at a time. That's all we can do.
Yeah,
So to close, Tanieka, tell us a little bit about how to get in contact with you. I know you said, of course, you're in the greater Atlanta area, but just how can people get in touch with you so if they need assistance in this space that they can receive it?
absolutely. We assist clients throughout the state of Georgia. So even if you're in rural Georgia, I work with you as well. You can reach us by calling our office. Our office number is 678-855-6002. You can email us. Our email is info@ttlawllc.com. And we are also on social. So we are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. We even have a Twitter. We tweet about estate planning. And we even have a little TikTok account. We just don't venture into that one too. Might as well get into all the socials. And typically our handle is Millennial Estate Planning, because that's another group that just disregards planning. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, we can go on that for sure. Oh my goodness. Well, Tanieka, thank you so much for taking the time to join me and to chat. I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to us working together again really soon.
Yes, thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
I appreciate you. Have a great one.
All right, you too. Take care.